אוקיי. אחר הצהריים טובים לכולם. ברוכים וברוכות הבאות לכנס שלנו קו פרשת המים, גבולות ומרחבים באמנות היהודית העכשווית, שהוא כנס משותף למכון ליר בירושלים ולביאנלה של ירושלים לאמנות. אנחנו במושב שנקרא הגירה, זיכרונות ומולדת, ואני דוקטור טל דקל. אני ברשותכם אומר כמה מילים קצרות ככה רק באמת בכדי למסגר את התחום שבתוכו אנחנו רוצים לחשוב ביחד היום את הנושא הזה, ואז נעבור להרצאות עצמן. בסדר? בעבור הפרט, חוויית ההגירה, המעבר מארץ המוצא המולדת הראשונה לארץ חדשה אחרת, היא ביסודה חוויה של דיסאוריינטציה, פירוק, עירוב זהויות והגדרה מחודשת. ההגירה מייצרת מתחים רבים לצד גם הזדמנויות לקידום והתפתחות. הגירה יכולה אפילו לפתוח פתח לאופציות רדיקליות של, הייתי אומרת, המצאה מחדש של הזהות, או למצער היא יכולה להיות פלטפורמה למשא ומתן בנושאים של מקום, זהות, תרבות, בעולם טרנס-לאומי, שאותו עולם שאנו חיים בו היום. הגירה איננה אירוע, איננו מהלך חד פעמי שתחום בזמן, אלא חוויה מתמשכת שמלווה את הסובייקט לאורך שנים רבות, ויש אף הטוענים שהשפעתה איננה מתפוגגת לעולם. הניסיון לחשוב על הגירה, להמשיג אותה בכלים תיאורטיים ולתמצת או להקיף את מגוון ההיבטים שלה הוא מאמץ מורכב מאוד. ככל שאני מעמיקה לחקור בו עם השנים, אני חושבת שהוא מאמץ הוא קרוב כמעט לבלתי אפשרי. אבל אני כן אומר שחוויית ההגירה כוללת התנסויות שפעמים רבות הן אישיות סובייקטיביות, ובו בזמן הן פוליטיות אוניברסליות או לוקליות, וקיים קושי קבוע להבחין בין שני הממדים הללו. הבסיס של הדיון שנערוך היום במושב שלנו משלב בין ניתוח יצירות אומנות ובין דיון חברתי פוליטי, והוא יאפשר לנו ניסוח של סוגיות שמגשרות על הפער בין האישי והפוליטי, כששני צידי הדיון משלימים זה את זה. מחד גיסא, אומנות משקפת ומעידה על מציאות חברתית, ומאידך גיסא, ניתוח חברתי וביקורתי משפיעים באופן עמוק על עשייה אומנותית. אני מוצאת שאומנות היא כלי מצוין לבחינת מציאות, מעין מכשיר ניווט שמצביע על הלכי רוח, עמדות, אמונות, ולכן יצירות אומנות מהוות המחשה אפקטיבית שיכולה לשמש וקטור, כמו משהו שזורה אור ממוקד על נושאים חברתיים, תרבותיים. במובן הזה יצירות אומנות פותחות צוהר מסוג מיוחד, מילולי, אל דינמיקות, אל יחסי כוח שמתקיימים כאן בהקשר לדת היהודית בכלל, ולדת היהודית בהקשר של מדינת ישראל בפרט. נכון הדבר שתופעות של הגירה במאה האחרונה נמצאות על סדר היום הציבורי והפוליטי ברחבי העולם כולו, והיא זוכה לנראות גבוהה, אבל היא מקבלת בהחלט מימד מובחן וייחודי בהיבט המקומי כאן. מדינת ישראל נוסדה, ואנחנו יודעים את זה, הוגדרה מלכתחילה כבית לאומי לעם היהודי. לכן, אל סוגי ההגירה המתקיימים ברחבי העולם ונובעים ממגוון סיבות, מצטרפת העלייה, שהיא תופעה ייחודית של מדינת הלאום היהודית בעת החדשה. העלייה נתפסת כחלק מהאתוס הציוני והיא מושפעת מהרעיון של ושבו בנים אל גבולם ובנות, ומהפרדיגמה של קיבוץ גלויות. אנחנו יודעים ויודעות שאופייה של ישראל מעוצב כמדינת הגירה בעלת צביון אתני, נכון? משום שחוקי ההגירה וההתאזרחות שנוסחו כאן מיועדים ליהודים בלבד, חוק השבות. עיקרון זה, שהוא מרכיב חשוב בזהותה היהודית של המדינה, מייצר סבך בירוקרטי, תיאולוגי ופוליטי של הגדרות זהות ומצביע על תהליכי התמקמות במרחב של קבוצות ושל יחידים. כך למשל, המצב המורכב הזה בלט בהגירה מאתיופיה ומברית המועצות לשעבר, כאשר יהדותם של רבים ורבות הוטלה בספק, וכתוצאה מכך גם האפשרות לתחושת השייכות של אותם מהגרים ומהגרות בחברה היהודית בישראל. זאת ועוד בסוגריים, היותה של ישראל מדינת הגירה יהודית בעיקרה משפיעה על הגירת לא יהודים אליה. למשל, כל הנושא של הגירת העבודה שמגיעה לישראל. המדיניות של ישראל היא סירוב להעניק מעמד של קבע למי שמכונים כאן, למשל, עובדים זרים. הם מיועדים להגיע רק לתקופה קצרה ומוגבלת. וקצרה היריעה מלדבר על הנושא הזה בהקשר של האוכלוסייה הערבית והפלסטינית בישראל, הגירה פנימית ופנימה והחוצה בסוגיות של הגירה בראי האומנות. אז כדי להיטיב להמחיש את חוויית ההגירה של אומניות ואומנים יהודים ולהעמיק בה, המושב הזה התמקד בכמה מקרי בוחן שאני מקווה יעשירו ואף יסבכו את הדיונים שלנו, יסבכו במובן הטוב של המילה, to complicate את ה-discussions, גם כשנדון באומנים שפועלים בארצות שונות ברחבי העולם, כמו שמריה תעשה, אבל גם כשנדבר על אומנים ואומניות שפועלים פה בישראל. אז אני אבקש להציג ברשותכם כל דוברת בתורה, לא את כולן ביחד, בסדר? מריה וייץ, אוצרת עצמאית, מייסדת במשותף של ה-TOK, Creative Association of Curators, בסנט פטרבורג, שהוא ארגון אומנותי היוזם תערוכות ופרויקטים מחקריים וחינוכיים ברוסיה ובעולם. מריה למדה בארצות הברית, בגרמניה וברוסיה, היא בעלת תואר BA ב-Liberal Arts מברדס קולג' ניו יורק ו-MA בסוציולוגיה מאוניברסיטת סנט פטרבורג. מריה היא מלגאית לאוצרות, חינוך ומחקר במכללת ברד, האוניברסיטה באוסלו, פולברייט, מכון גותה ו-European College of Liberal Arts בברלין. בשנת 2013 הייתה אחת הזוכות בתחרות EUNIC לאוצרים רוסים צעירים. ומריה תישא את דבריה באנגלית, ולכן ברשותכם אני עושה לה גם הצגה באנגלית קצרה. מריה Veits is an independent curator, a co-founder of Creative Association of Curators TOK St. Petersburg, an art organization that initiates exhibitions, research and educational projects in Russia and internationally. She's a recipient of many, we said that all in Hebrew, so if I may, I will just say that the title of your presentation today is Stories We Tell, Collective Memory and Personal Histories in the Works of Migrating Artists. Maria, bevakasha.
Hello, everyone. Lovely to be here today, this afternoon. Thank you, Tal, for this lovely presentation. The title of my presentation might sound a little bit broad, but I think the very question of migration and, history of migration, different aspects, social, ethnic, political, religious of migration are very much relevant to the history of Israel. And many artists, and I, over the years, I get to learn this scene more and more, and I have worked with Israeli artists and had a chance to show their work in Russia in different cities, and always very pleased with very strong messages that many Israeli artists deliver. And from my experience, I see how many artists work with the topic of their roots, with the topic of the history of their family, with the collective family history versus personal history, and how they kind of work with very different layers of what creates our memory, creates our history, creates our own personal story, and our personal contribution to the formal history. For me, this is also a very, I think, relevant topic. Migration. I'm very new here. I just moved a year ago from St. Petersburg. So I very much can relate to art practitioners who, in their practice, tend to reflect upon certain migration issues. I will be speaking about Soviet Aliyah, but I hope to bring in something new into this discourse, which is definitely not new for Israel. But I'm going to talk about artists who I hope are not maybe yet so well known here, but have lots of potential, and I believe have a very strong and interesting exhibition history in front of them. I think the local scene contributed and also I think gained a lot from the artists who came from the Soviet Union and from this Soviet Aliyah in general. Some artists came here already as formed professionals, like Mikhail Grobman, for instance, and some were, forming here and were also basing and structuring their practice upon certain memories and upon the Soviet discourse. And for instance, New Barbizon and Zoe Cherkassky, of whom I'm sure many of you know, has built her entire very politically, very anthropologically charged visual narrative on this very peculiar, specific details of the Soviet life and of the post-Soviet life of Soviet Jews in Israel. What I want to talk about today, I think very much relates to the entire political agenda, political climate that we witness at the territory of the former Soviet Union, tensions between Russia and Ukraine, tension between Russia and, European political arena, which certainly creates a new wave of Aliyah, and I'm an example, I think, of that new wave. It's not as large as the Aliyah of the 90s, and of course it very much differs from that migration flow, because I think people today, people of my age, people of my background, have different motivations when they move out of Russia, and also the country has changed very much. So we're living a very different country than people who were living it, 30 years ago or 25 or something like that. So I think in this light, it's very interesting to revisit this Aliyah and turn to artists who were born here as children, born here by the parents, who were running away from, Soviet anti-Semitism, from the Soviet reality, from the Soviet economic life, from this, everyday struggle. And that decision-making was not a part of their own agenda. Brought here as children, they had to merge into a very new context, very different culture, different language, different system of rituals and cultural codes. All right, so in this light, I think it's interesting to see how their practice was forming on this kind of juxtaposition of the place where they're coming from, the culture where they're coming from, and the new concept that they were brought in, and see how in their practice, when they were, growing and forming as artists, they were reflecting upon certain changes that happened to them when they were still young. I'm going to talk about the artists that are part of the exhibition that I'm curating here as a part of the biennial. And I want to start with the artist Felix Kalmenson. It's a Canadian-based artist who was born in Leningrad, but then with his family he came to Israel, where they spent only 5 years, and then they will move to Canada. So, this migration, I think the migration today is also very much characterized with the fact that, we always keep searching, we always keep looking, this move doesn't really stop. And being very interested in his background and his roots, Felix, for the first time came to Russia last year. And one of his point of his departure for his research was a film that his family made when they were leaving Russia in 1989. Since, as probably many of you know, Jews who were living for Israel were put in very tight frame. They were not allowed to take many belongings, just, very necessary things. So taking, all of your heritage, all of things that are forming your memory, your material memory, books, clothes, photographs, that was the personal archives, that was impossible. So what were people often doing is asking someone, a professional filmmaker, to make a short film that would, consist some immaterial memories that they could take along. This film was, the only memory that Felix, as an artist, as a person, could hold from his childhood and the experience and memory that he could relate to growing up. So when he came to Russia, he shot by shot reshoot, frame by frame, this home video, family video, in which, in a very interesting way, he compares the country that doesn't exist anymore was the country that is there now, very present and can be very aggressive and very hostile. He juxtaposes socialist and capitalist system, and certain reality was, which was created by someone who was not a family member, with the reality that he's creating or recreating now with his own hands and with his own kind of camera eye. Very interesting to see how, the country has changed, the reality has changed. You see a very old car in the video from 1998 and a huge Lexus in the video from 2016. City full of commercials and advertisements, like in comparison to a city which looks quite shabby and everyone looks, not so maybe contemporary looking. And I think it's a very interesting way of how you can work with your memory and kind of approach certain parts of history and reality. Another project that he did, and I think is very interesting to address, is a big installation that he made in Canada based on his kind of vision of today's Russia, which is called As Always. And thus, this project kind of asks the question, how long Russia will be repeating its own history? How long this totalitarian threat will be, hanging upon the country, upon the society, and why things, either stay the same. I think this is a very much of an eternal symbol of Russian salad or olivier, and how many more times we will be going to, this medieval approach and medieval sort of relations between the state and the society. Very deep work. I suggest you to maybe take a closer look at what he does, an artist with great potential. Another artist that I very much value as a person with very, I think, deep and meaningful works is our New York-based artist, Ira Eduardovna, who was born in Uzbekistan. And with her family, at a very young age, she left Uzbekistan for Israel. And in all of her practice, she keeps coming back to that very traumatic transition from one culture to another. And, her works are full of this very kind of clear Russian or Soviet symbols. It's either literature, that the Cherry Orchard, the play by Chekhov, which also is about abandoning your home when you're in a situation when you have to do it, you're forced to leave. The idea of returning to her home. She was in Uzbekistan 20 years after they first left, and it was a very strong impression. She was telling me how she and her sister went upstairs to see the apartment where they used to live, and her parents were just not able to do that. They said, we're not coming upstairs. It's too difficult to see the apartment where I used to live, full of things and belongings of other people now. So she's coming back to Israel with a big exhibition next year, where many of her works will be presented. One of them, this fascinating multi-channel video installation, one on foreign-made souls, also about kind of returning and this illusion of returning, because the place which you left doesn't exist anymore, just right, like the country which people had to abandon. She works, as I said, a lot with this kind of very symptomatic symbols of the Soviet and Russian culture, which include elements of architecture, interior design, like this traditional wallpaper or traditional kind of bits of block architecture that is so typical for the Soviet cities. That video is also about memory and fragility, and it's a part of the exhibition. I won't be stopping long because of lack of time, maybe, but I suggest you go see it for yourself because it's still in view. As I noticed, this kind of very personal stories are very much intertwining with political context, was socio-political history, was public history, and very often artists take as a point of departure some small bits of their personal history that can be attributed to different people, and that can be universal in some sense because many people can relate to them. For instance, this is a work by artist Rimar Slanov. She was born in Tajikistan, and she works a lot with this, very kind of typical Central Asian ornaments and parts of decorative elements that are, so widespread in Central Asia. And she kind of reinterprets them, recodes them, adds certain additional meanings to these elements, and they appear in a very uncommon ways in her works. This is another example of how she kind of combines personal stories with public history, this kind of old-time radio, this audiovisual piece, this sound installation, is an homage to her grandfather, who always had to hide his Jewish identity, his kind of belongings to Jewish culture, because he was born in Lithuania, and then he married a woman and moved to Central Asia, where being a Jew was not a very maybe safe thing to be. So he was just keeping these parts of his personality and identity, and they were never a part of his kind of, public face. It was only the things that were being discussed within the family. So with this work, which also is a sound piece, as I said, and includes the artist's grandfather singing and playing an accordion, she kind of, makes his personal story public, makes this personal, very traumatic experience when you cannot reveal who you are, makes it public so that other people could also relate it and feel connected to that very personal story. Another example of how she, works, kind of exchanges metal or ceramics with fake fur, and kind of, enlarges certain small elements of this Central Asian decoration. Also, I think what's very interesting is how artists that of this generation, the artists I'm talking about, how much research they put into their work. And for me, it's always a very big plus on part of the artists when they also are willing to go to archives, to work with personal documents, to go in the field, conduct interviews, and combine fiction and history and create their own narrative. So, for instance, I'll get back to this one, but I just want to speak about a very rare project by Georgian-born artist Nino Beniashvili, who at some point started to work closer with the Jewish community in Tbilisi and its history in the late 80s and late 70s and early 80s in Tbilisi. Not much is known of about this community, but these rare slides are from Nadar Janjikashvili and Albert Benzion, who undertook a trip to Tbilisi with the specific idea of doing a research on the local Jewish community. And these rare shots of the life of this community gave birth to Nino's project, which is a series of black and white prints where she kind of combines this reality and this very beautiful photographs with her own understanding of them, and with kind of mythological and magical interpretation that she gives to them. So also, I think, a very beautiful, very delicate work, which also, is very educational, because it kind of gives you a chance to peek into something historical, which is not very accessible and not so much well known. And returning to her other work, I'm sorry for this skipping, in her practice she also very often relates to her, double, triple identity. She was born in Georgia, and she, kind of absorbed certain bits of Georgian culture. And then she moved to Israel, and then she spent a lot of time in Sweden. So these very, very different societies had a certain impact on her as an individual. So how to skip between these three, or even more? How to, enter a certain particular context which is new? Are you there as an Israeli, or you're there as a Georgian, or you're there as a Sweden girl? So, and I think these questions are very important for most of us today when we travel so much, and when we also, understand how much identity of each of us entails. So this kind of merging into a new context and, having a weight of a new identity, I think a question that we all kind of keep asking ourselves all the time. So skipping back, there's not so much nostalgia in these works of young people. I think one of very interesting aspects and kind of phenomena here is the way they're trying to combine the home culture and this new culture that they became a part of when they were still very young. And for instance, this work by Ukrainian war artist, photographer Vera Vladimirsky, who's a very interesting photographer, always kind of, tests limits of the photography as a medium and tries to combine things that are very difficult to combine if you look at them, at the first glance. So when she just moved to Ukraine, her family was moving a lot within the country. And after a certain period of time, when she was already a student at Bezalel, she decided she will do a project that would combine all of the apartments where she lived and try to create some new space out of them, also using collage as a main kind of approach to this project, to this theme. So she managed to catch very typical elements and details of Israeli design and interior. The tiles floor, this furniture, the plants, and photographing and rephotographing the spaces. She kind of made a collage of the 26 apartments where her family lived when they just moved to Israel. But at the same time, even though this very much relates to memory and certain kind of attempt to catch certain parts and prevent our memories from fading away and out, another, I think, very interesting project that she is working on currently is combination of very Soviet culture and of Israeli culture. This is a series of artistic wallpaper that are done based on combination of wallpaper is a very significant, very traditional part of the Soviet decor, the Soviet interior, and it's combined with patterns of very typical Israeli plants. Not always very beautiful. Sometimes they can be quite harsh, burned by the sun, already looking half dead, or very flourishing, very kitschy, very pink. And I think it's an interesting approach of how you can, take small details, but very specific details from two cultures, combine them and make a very new product out of them. And the last artist I wanted to talk about is Sasha Tamarin, I think, the one who maybe goes to Russia much more often. He was born in Moscow, much more often than the rest of the artists that I'm talking about. So his memories are still, very present. His knowledge of Russia develops, and he also witnesses the change that's happening to it. But at the same time, in his kind of early years of his practice, he had this very nostalgic dacha, as I call it, project about his, summers spent in Russian dacha, was all the kind of wood and the green grass and the very kind of significant, typical details and parts of Russian nature and kind of this Russian summer vacationing. But it's interesting how he's switching, and he's now working solely with Israeli context, and works with this very kitsch photography, lots of light, lots of direct light, a very symbolic and very, I think, typical either plans or context of Israeli culture. So that was just, a short glimpse into how I also see certain changes and certain interesting aspects of the scene that is, Israeli, but also I think international, because 3 of the artists who I was talking about are living not in Israel, though they lived here a certain amount of years, and I think were very much formed by Israeli culture. And it's interesting to see, this kind of Soviet and then Israeli trace, and now more global and international presence in their practice. Thank you.